Hey, I'm someone from the dark. I hope you're having a great day. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a tour of HyperCrown version 0.2, and I'll be demonstrating its basic functionality. In the future, I'll be creating more tutorial videos that go into greater detail, so if you don't want to miss out on those videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to receive a notification when they go live. I also want to thank my patrons for making this project possible. If you want to help support the development of HyperCrown, click the link in the description to my Patreon. There are multiple tiers with rewards. Let's get started. First, we can open HyperCrown's new GUI by double-clicking on the executable. Two windows will pop up. This black window will display debug information while the program is running, so please be sure to include that if you submit a bug report. Otherwise, we'll just be looking at this window today. In the top left, you can see three buttons. These are used to import files into the GUI. The text boxes to the right of each one will display the file name of the file you have imported. In this folder here, I have some files prepared for us. This is Sora's MDLS and MSET. Let's go ahead and import his MDLS now by clicking on the Import Asset button. This combo box allows you to select the different files that are supported by HyperCrown. By selecting MDLS, we'll be able to import the MDLS file. Now that we have done this, you can see that a couple other areas of the GUI have become enabled. This left list view displays the textures from the MDLS file that we just imported. By right-clicking in it, we get a menu, and we are able to do a couple of different options. The first is that we can import an image to replace this texture with. We can export the image we selected or all of the textures, which I'll do now. And you can see that we get all of the textures here. There's also an option to assign a palette to pixels. This is used for images that contain multiple color palettes. I won't be going over this in detail today. The Add Image option will allow you to add additional textures. So for example, I can add a 7th texture down here, and likewise the Remove Image option lets us delete a texture. By using that Import option I mentioned earlier, we're also able to modify a single texture, like so. This list view on the right contains the subfiles from the MDLS file. Here we can see that a MDLS can contain a DPX, a TIM2 file, this is actually used for the character's HUD image, an SE file for sound effects, and it can contain VAG files for usually bosses' battle quotes. But Sora's, you can see, does not have a section for these, so it's grayed out. By right-clicking on this section, we can see another menu where we will be able to import files, export the subfiles, and again we can export all of them, which I can do. And just like that, we now have the DPX, the HUD image, and the sound effects file, respectively. We can also import to the HUD image, for example, by selecting the Import option. And by selecting the KH2 HUD, for example, we now have the KH2 HUD image. And you can see that now this got replaced when I exported it. We can also import to the non-existent VAG file if I wanted to. When you select Import for any of the file types that are all capitals and then with a lowercase s, which implies that there are multiple of them, when you attempt to import these, you actually get a separate window. As you can see here, there's currently nothing, but if we right-click, we can access the menu. We won't be able to import at the moment since there's nothing to overwrite, but we can select Add. This will let us add VAG files, and I have one sitting right here. And by doing so, we now have the VAG file imported. If I hit Accept, you can see that the section now changes to True. And now if we hit Import again, we can see that there is one VAG file. Likewise, I can remove it if I wanted to get rid of the VAG. When I hit Accept, we go back to no longer having VAGs. In the bottom left, you can see this Export Asset button. This button is used to save changes that you have made with HyperCrown. The checkboxes here to the right are the export options for models, and they become enabled once you have imported a model asset. For example, we can export any changes we made to this MDLS. I'm going to flip the UVs. Actually, for MDLS, I won't flip the UVs. But we can save the modified HUD image here in the MDLS by selecting the MDLS file type and I will name this new HUD. By hitting save, we now get a new MDLS here, which will have the modified HUD image. We can also convert the model to a different format. So now I'll hit the flip UVs option, and here I can save it as a Kaleida DAE file. And now we have a DAE model instead. We can also import this DAE file with the Import Asset button. And it finds all of the textures. And then you can see that in the DAE there is no subfile. We can also convert the DAE back to an MDLS, but in order to do so, we need to import a template, because if you want to export as either an MDLS or a WPN, you can see we get an error that tells us MDLS requires a template. So first, we have to select a template. We'll just select the original MDLS. And we can export again. And now we have our custom MDLS file made from the DAE. Finally, if we switch back to the original MDLS, we can import an MSET. And this will enable this middle list view, which contains all of the texture animation files. When we hover over the texture animation, you can see a combo box appears to the right here, with the number 6 in it in this case. This 6 refers to which texture it is linked to, in this case, source facial texture from the model. By changing this number, you can change which texture it is linked to, which changes the color palette used. The tool automatically tries to fit the colors to their closest match. When we right-click on the images in the texture animation list view, we get the similar options to the textures, minus the assign palette to pixels option, because the palette used is from these ones. There is no palette actually for these. So similarly, we can modify them with the import option. We can export all of them, and we can add new ones or remove ones we don't want anymore. Also, once you have imported an MSET, if we click the Export Asset button, we can now choose the MSET option to export to save any changes we want to the MSET. So that you can save any changes you want to make to the texture animations. And that concludes our tour of HyperCrown version 0.2. You can download HyperCrown from the link in the description so you can try it out yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. I would like to thank my dark side patron, Stephen Walker, as well as my Neo Shadow patron, Tristan Watts-Willis.